Oh, hello, world. Welcome to Comic Book News. It's me, your old pal, Dan Shaheen. Hey, it's been a while since we're back in the old CBN studio in the regular format. Been trying all kinds of other crazy things, trying to get some eyeballs watching out there. But now we're back to our roots. This is what it's about, man. This is where we take that circle on the Venn diagram that is comics, and we take that circle that is computer nerd and we put them together, right? And they intersect. And right in the middle of that intersection is this guy, Brian Garside. He's like the smoother version of me from the North. He's like, man, he's the creator of Manage Comics, an amazing cloud-based comic book subscription management, point of sale, Dragon Slayer, right? So we're going to bring him in here for a demo. And we're also going to talk about comics because he's just a comic book head like you and me, just as much. And in fact, Brian and I share a lot of common loves in the world of comics and technology. So we'll bring him in just a second. First, hey, I want to ask you this. Can you consider clicking on subscribe here? Look, if you're not already a subscriber to this channel, it would really, really help me out if you would consider clicking that subscribe link. We've kind of plateaued on the number of subscribers. I got a few thousand people. That's a lot more than I ever dreamed I would have that cared about the kind of stuff that I care about talking about. But if you care about it, just think about clicking that, okay? All right, that's all I'm going to say. I'm going to say one other thing. I'm going to say this. If you want to see your comics on the $1 Million Mailbox on this show, because that's the other thing that I do. I bring in my pal Larry Young from AIT Planet Lair, and we look at all the comics that are mailed to me. I have a humongous box still full of them. So we've got $1 Million mailboxes to come. If you want to see yours there, mail it to me. P.O. Box 1163, Arcata, California, 955-018. And we'll take a look. I would love to see that. Larry would love to see that too. Okay, now let's bring it on in. Let's go talk to Brian. We can't talk to him here. We'll talk to him somewhere else. Where at? How about
to the bat post?
All right, we're in the Bat Cave, and let's bring him in. Brian, you know him, you love him. Brian Garside from Manage Comics. Hey, welcome back, Brian.
Hey, friend, how you doing?
It's fantastic.
It's been a while since we've talked. It was like, gosh, it's got to be 6 months ago now.
At least, yeah. At the very least. We had a demo here. The demo didn't go like exactly as we want demos to go, but to tell you the truth, that's how it goes. Like that's how real it is. That's like a real deal demo in the wild.
It's true. We were still in beta at that time, and I think we had like 5 stores that were baiting with us. But yeah, we've been live now since December. We've been live, and we have, I think, 85 stores last time I checked. Lot in the United States and Canada, and then we've got about a half dozen in Europe right now. So we're kind of making roads. Europe is an underserved market because, just the way that things work there, they don't have a whole lot of kind of tech things going for them. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
So why don't you give us a broad overview for those people who don't know? Tell us, what does Manage Comics do, and what doesn't it do? Like, what's the elevator pitch for Manage Comics?
For sure. So Manage Comics is the easiest way to manage subscriptions on a Shopify store, and we are the only official Shopify app that is that's in the Shopify App Store. So it literally, I've got a demo online where I can show you in 7 minutes how you can have subscriptions in your Shopify store. It takes 7 minutes to set it up. So I don't think there's another solution out there that can be set up in 7 minutes. Prove me wrong, though. If somebody can do it in 7 minutes, I'd love to see it.
And so, but what you're telling me there is not just using it for in-store subscription management, but now suddenly all the stuff in your store is automatically online in your Shopify store as well.
That's right. And not only that, but there's deep integrations into the subscription part. So if I click on X-Men 92 here, it's actually going to show me a little link to subscribe to this series. When I click that, you're into the Manage Comics world now. So this is Manage Comics front end pages, which are being served off of your website. So if you know anything about SEO, you know this is really good for you. I'm not funneling you away to Pullbox or another company. I'm keeping all your customers on your website.
Wow, they're coming to my website and not to Brian's website, is what you're
That's
telling
right.
me.
Yeah. This is served up by our GeekFetch databases, but we do it as a JavaScript kind of insert. So you don't know as a customer that any of this stuff is coming from anywhere other than the store. We bring in like your styles and everything. So if you change the way your site looks, the whole Manage Comics interface changes with you without you doing a thing. You don't have to go into Manage Comics and change settings. It just magically happens.
So I can run my own Google Analytics or whatever analytics I want on my website and understand where my customers are coming from and how they're finding me, etc.
Yeah, and it'll go deep into where they're going on the Managed Comics pages as well, because each one of these pages has its own product ID. So you can actually, like, let's say you want to really, really hype X-Men 92 House of XCII. You could actually send out an email with this link, which will go right to that page. So you're not sending them off to Pullbox to have them log in on Pullbox with your user ID. They go to your website, they log in, you're there.
So I could even send out like an email campaign to talk about a specific issue, and I can track actually how many people are clicking on those emails and coming to that site and seeing it and even ordering it and closing and capturing all those analytics that the big boys can do. I can do in my little shop.
Yep. And all that stuff is also tracked through Shopify's own in-house analytics too. So you get even more info. And as a customer, I can go and subscribe to any series that has a subscription ability. I can pre-order upcoming issues. So we also, if you're subscribed to an issue, we'll give you a warning before you go and pre-order another issue. Because we notice like Saga customers are really, really bad for subscribing to something and then wanting to pre-order the individual issues, because often Saga customers, the only comics they get are Saga. So they don't really get how a subscription works, right? They think they have to pre-order every individual issue. We kind of make a lot of that simpler for you as a store.
Right, so you're making the subscription management process less confusing to the end user who's my customer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and we keep the monthly previews catalogs up, and we're constantly updating the actual data with new pictures and information. You can subdivide things down to just the Boom titles that are out this month for June.
Wait a minute, I have to pay for that data and download those pictures myself, right? And put them on my web server and go through all that jazz.
No, we do all this magic for you. We do all that magic for you. And so then when your books come in, we actually create all the Shopify pages for you. So this page here is created by Manage Comics when your new products come in, and it has your title, it has all your description information. And then on the back end, it has all kinds of tags, including creator information, writer, artist, genre, so superhero. So you can create tags on your front end around exactly which books you have. So yeah, that's kind of the front end of all this different stuff we do. I mean, a lot of people that pay for our service say that this part here, uploading your invoice and creating all the products, pays for itself on its own, because a lot of places had a person dedicated full time to just manually entering in X-Men 92 House of, or they were using a file from another supplier that wasn't very good. We also work with Lunar, Diamond, and Penguin Random House. We have regular monthly calls with Penguin Random House to talk about data. And I'm involved in a bunch of different data groups to make sure that the data coming in is always good. And we do our own augmentation on the back end. This is our GeekFetch database where we actually ingest all the different data files. And then we do things like add storylines so that if somebody, we don't have this feature yet, but we're going to be adding the feature of if somebody wants all Dark Crisis books, they'd be able to just subscribe to the Dark Crisis series, and the system will be smart enough to know you're already subscribed to Flash, so I won't pull you an extra copy of Flash.
Drastically needed, Brian. But I got to ask you, I got one problem that I used to have a lot. You know, in this day and age, we don't have series that last for 10 years or even 1 year anymore, right? Series sometimes, even what's called an ongoing series, is not, it's not long before Spider-Man's going to get rebooted again and again and again. It used to be spend a lot of time doing data entry, taking all the people that were subscribed to Justice League Volume 17 and subscribing them to Justice League Volume 18, number one. When from their point of view, they're like, of course, duh, I'm a Justice League fan, right?
I always pick on Amazing Spider-Man because it's constantly like rebooting every 6 months. Well, let's go into, so this is the Shopify backend. So just from the Shopify backend, I just go into the Manage Comics app. So this is an app within the Shopify ecosystem. And I'll just go to my customers here, and I'm going to go to all subscriptions. And I'm going to use Fantastic Four because I know I've got a bunch of, I'll search up Fantastic Four. So let's take all the people who are on Fantastic Four and let's move them all over to New Fantastic Four. So I pop in here. Oh, sorry, wrong way. I'm going to go into the New Fantastic Four, and I'm going to clone all the subscribers from,
oh my gosh,
find Fantastic Four. So it shows me all the titles that come up with Fantastic Four, and there's Fantastic Four 47. Let's clone them all in. And now there's all my Fantastic Four people. So when Amazing Spider-Man went from the old volume to the new volume, stores were able to do this like in 2 seconds. So they that's how we deal with that stuff.
Guys, if that sounded like a canned infomercial pitch, it's because it did, because I'm very proud of this feature, because this is a feature that I wrote into my old sub management system 10 years ago, 12 years ago, or something like that. And no other comics point of sale vendor seemed to have picked up on that feature. And a lot of people really love and this is a shop owner feature, right? Yeah. This is a save you time and money kind of feature. That's
and I unabashedly stole that from a conversation I had with your buddy Ed, who said, yeah, one of the most used features that we have is cloning subscriptions. We even called it cloning subscriptions because I love that term. I thought that was a perfect term. So so we do that. And in your subscription management, you can get in and look at any customer. You can see all their titles that they're currently subscribed to. Let's say that this guy wants to end Avengers as of the next issue. I can update that, and now his final pull on this will be, if I move over a little bit, where's my little, I should have dates. Oh no, I guess the date is in here. So my final pull will be on the next issue of it, which will then turn it into an
very handy
subscription. Yeah, for sure.
And in other words, then if I'm filling out my previews or my final order cutoffs, those numbers for those subsequent issues are going to be adjusted.
Correct.
You're going to know you have one less subscriber, because that could be the difference between being profitable or not being profitable on a title. Like what for the vast majority of titles out there that are small press or even from the big two, 1 or 2 subscribers is the difference between making or losing money sometimes.
Absolutely. And that's why on the front end, when a customer is subscribed to things, when they actually cancel that item, as long as they do it before the FOC, it'll actually tell them that they can immediately cancel it. But if they cancel a book after FOC, it's going to still pull Ant until number 5 comes out, because I missed the FOC on when I canceled it. Conversely, if I add something, it's going to tell me when my first pull will be. Because if I miss the FOC, with the way that a lot of publishers print these days, if you miss FOC, chances are you're not going to get it. We're actually going to change the term FOC to last call, because it confuses a lot of customers. But I mean, inside baseball, we all know that it's final order cutoff. A lot of customers don't understand what that means. So we'll call it last call in brackets FOC, just to kind of simplify that a bit.
Gotcha. I think, putting it in terms, I think the terms that probably the most consumers would understand is like they're very used to and trained to this for video games.
Yeah.
At least for if you buy the over-the-counter version of like console games and stuff,
For sure.
they know they got to get their pre-order in by this date, or they might
Yeah.
not get it.
Well, everything's like that, right? Like, I mean, try and get a first pressing of a vinyl album these days unless you pre-order it. And if you don't pre-order it 6 months in advance, you ain't getting it. So the world has moved that way.
Hey, what about Level Up Entertainment says, what about items that don't have images? How do you handle that?
Yeah, so by default, we have we go through and we replace all the distributors' default image removal thing. We should see it on June because I'm sure there'll be a few things that don't have images. We have a product image not currently available, and then we go through and update these probably 3 more times before they come out. So we update them once, kind of mid-cycle. Then we update missing images on the FOC, and we update them again on the new release date. And then on top of that, we have kind of internal systems where if a customer, like a managed comics customer, a store, updates any of the images, they go through a vetting process by us, and then we approve those images, and now they're available for all the stores. So yeah, there's a little bit of crowdsourcing. There's a little bit of, refetching images. Places like Penguin Random House are amazing with providing us really great high quality images in an FTP that we can go in and refetch multiple times.
So you're queuing me up for a couple questions I had. One about Penguin Random House in general, just as a partner, as a data provider, because I hear a lot of complaints about order management through Penguin, like just their website, the ability to use, like you have to know what the SKU or the ISBN or you're out of luck.
Yeah.
For stuff. And what are your thoughts on that? How could they improve? How are they good?
So my favorite thing about Penguin is that they know that they're entering in a market that they have very little experience with, and they have no arrogance or like, illusions about that. So they're very much partners. Like I've never met a company that is as partner centric as Penguin Random House. So they are really, really welcome to feedback. They're a bigger company, so it takes a while for them to implement that feedback. But when they do implement it, like, dude, as a software guy,
yeah,
the documentation that you get from Penguin is unparalleled anywhere else. Like they give you entire data schematics that explains what every field does. I've never seen that in any other comic company ever.
That's awesome. Do they have APIs that you can tap into?
They don't yet. And I think that the whole book market is changing so quickly. I think they'll be the first ones to come up with that stuff. And that's,
they've got the resources right there.
Yeah.
They would be the ones who would have to show the way.
Exactly. And that's why, like, I will guarantee you the reason Marvel went with Penguin Random House is because the amount of data that Penguin Random House can provide them, which is unparalleled by anyone else. Nobody else has the ability to give this data.
Just a real-time inventory and shipping API so that I can just, from my computer, as I'm taking an order, I can look up for a customer. Yes, they have one in the warehouse. Yes, it is on order.
Oh, I would love that, because then our tool and every tool, Comic Hub, every single other tool would be able to integrate that into our system, and you could do real-time orders. I mean, it'd be essentially drop shipping 2.0. Every single comic store could be a drop shipping hub. Like, yeah, why that hasn't happened yet? But you know what? Who will come up with it first will be Penguin Random House, and I'll be the first one to implement it. I'll happily implement that system.
Totally. I mean, dude, there's people out there still using, unconnected FileMaker based systems or other systems on their individual desktop. And frankly, get a lot of mileage out of what they do. But I feel like there's a lot of people locked into a routine and doing and not even considering that saving just 1 hour a week is such a humongous financial win.
I agree.
For a business. And I think managed comics is going to probably save you a little bit more than that, depending on the size of your shop, right?
Oh, yeah.
How much would you say?
In time?
Yeah.
I mean, just so if you're an online hybrid store, just being able to get your products onto your site quickly, that saves you like 4 hours minimum, probably closer to 20. If you're doing subscriptions and you're manually still entering things from an Excel spreadsheet or, a God forbid, a binder, like, we're talking untold hours. When I do my ordering, it literally takes a couple seconds. Like I go through the initial orders, I can adjust all the shelf quantities of everything I want, create the order, upload it to Diamond, Lunar, and Penguin Random House, and I'm done in an hour maybe. If you're doing this stuff manually, I can't even imagine. It would take forever. But and then on top of that, like the stores I've talked to who we've convinced to go online, which by the way, pre-pandemic, that was like pulling teeth. Telling a store that they should have an online presence. I mean, I may as well have been also asking them to open up a donut shop inside of their store. Like it was crazy, right? But the pandemic changed all those conversations because one, people found out, hey, when my store's closed, I can still be selling comics. Awesome. Two, they found out when my store is closed after hours, I'm still selling comics. Holy
Duh.
mackerel, right?
Yeah,
And
duh.
and some stores were like, well, I don't want to ship all over the world. Then make it local pickup only. And stores like Comic City in Detroit, they have 4 locations. They have all their online inventory from like a warehouse. And every time that you place an order, they ship it to the individual drop location. You go pick it up. And hey, guess what happens when somebody walks into your store to pick up an order? They see Dark Crisis #1 on the wall and grab that. And they see, the bad idea display at their cash register and grab one of those. And suddenly they've done 15 extra dollars worth of sales on top of the thing that they went there to get, which they knew they were going to be able to get because they had prepaid for it and walk in to pick it up.
Yeah, if you increase your customer options, and then if pickup is reasonable for most people, they're going to want to do, and you have a nice store, they're going to
Absolutely.
want to do that.
Yeah.
And then if there's a slight savings, they don't have to pay a shipping charge or whatever.
Yep.
It's the incentive to come in. The whole network effect happens, and you're working all those channels at once. I think that is the critical thing that Managed Comics is doing. It's letting you. Every store has to be a multi-channel retailer now.
Absolutely.
There's no choice anymore.
Absolutely. Here, pull up Julian's comment there because I'd love to speak to that. Julian is one of our earliest Managed Comics stores, and he runs BD Cosmos in Laval, Quebec. Julian is actually in the process of doing some really cool business things because he sees in the market that people love to buy things on Amazon, right? Because you get it really cheap. People hate buying things on Amazon when they're comics because they come to you all destroyed, right? So Julian sees that and he's like, you know what? I'm going to make this my mission to be the place where people buy instead of Amazon because I'm going to guarantee you're going to get it in beautiful condition. You're going to get amazing packaging that nobody else will do. So he's revolutionized kind of the way that his business is done. And it's dudes like him who are going to make money hand over fist. Because
I think the combination of social media marketing, live selling, like we see people doing more and more of these days, but centrally tying it into a central inventory database is so critical to that endeavor and so technically daunting to pull off, to even attempt to pull off until pretty recently. That I think people are just it's sort of the lagging curve. And you're right, the pandemic just accelerated that. Do you want to bring back do you want me to bring back the demo on screen?
Give me 1 second. I'm gonna
Sure.
pull something up really cool. We'll take a look at something neat.
Because guys, 1 second. And because guys, we're gonna check out some more Managed Comic stuff now too. But stick around too, because we got a little bit of comic book action coming up. We're gonna check out something really cool and tech related in the $1 Million Mailbox coming up soon. So stick around.
If you want to share my screen, I'll show you what happens kind of midweek if something comes in. So let's say that I got an order from Penguin Random House and it was for Wonder Woman Earth 1 Volume 3. So it came in and I want to check this in. So I got 5 copies in, but I didn't get an invoice. So I'm just going to look up the UPC. So Managed Comics finds that book. I got 5 copies in. My price was $29.99. I got these on a really good deal because they were blowing them out for $10 each. So I'm going to check that in. And the first thing Managed Comics does is it goes through and says, did anybody have this on order? So it looks like I had one person ordering a Wonder Woman Earth 1 Volume 3. Then I'm going to import 4 more copies into my store. And I'm just going to confirm this, that all happened. So right away, I know Brian Garside, I need to put one of these Wonder Woman Earth 1 Volume 3s aside. Great guy, really good customer. He loves to buy stuff off me. I pop into Shopify and go to the products, and it's been what, 10 seconds now, elapsed time, right? There it is. It's in my store now. It has all this information. It is bringing in, so it's still in progress of bringing things in, but it has my cost. It'll have my stock quantity. It brings in all these tags because these tags were ones that were set up for the store, puts in the type of graphic novels and the vendor of DC Comics. And if I would have waited a couple more seconds, it should have, there he is right there.
Well, I thought it was really cool when you put the cost in there. So are you able to have, if you're using multiple vendors, we're moving into a multi-vendor world, right? You got a choice of where, I mean, you don't have much choice, but theoretically you could have a choice, or you could even buy it on the aftermarket. You could buy something used, etc. Sure. How do you deal with that if at all?
So unfortunately, Shopify only allows you to have one cost per item, but you could have multiple variations of an item.
Yeah. So
if you wanted to have one that you were selling at $20 that maybe is in good condition, you could put the cost of that at a different price. But yeah, it's it pops it in super quick. I think that's actually a question is
I think level up with asking here. So no, the answer is what? No, you can have one cost within Shopify.
That's right. Managed Comics just puts in the most recent cost. And I think if there's already a cost in the system, I'd have to look into this, but I think it doesn't overwrite things that are already there. It just updates quantity. So at that point, you'd have to do kind of a manual intervention when you bring stuff in.
Yeah, when you think about it, it's kind of a tricky problem to solve, but I think I would be able to receive receive a line of this SKU from this vendor at this price. And that's just a line in the database. So I have 5 of them at this cost. And then if I receive from another vendor, I have 5 at this other cost. But then how do you know which one sold, right? It's the same item. That's a tricky problem to solve.
And in some ways, we're very limited by what Shopify will allow us to do, because you can't really change some of these screens. Like this is a Shopify default screen. And our choice from the beginning was that we were going to use off-the-shelf software, being Shopify and the Shopify point of sale. We also partner with a company called BinderPause, who uses Shopify as the intermediary between the two. But yeah, like we're limited by what Shopify will allow us to change. And
it's funny, there's always trade-offs of any system, right? Yeah. And like I go, so everybody always zeroes in on that one feature that I use in my crappy homebrewed system or whatever, that if you don't have that, it's no sale. Garside, right? Yeah. Actually, cloning subscriptions was that thing, I think, for Ed Greenberg.
It totally was. Yeah. That was one of the things that he was like, if it can't do this, this is the most used feature I have. So yeah, it's cool. So I'm going to check in my books this week. So I have a diamond invoice and I grabbed a lunar invoice. So I upload those 2 invoices and we really quickly check all of the IDs against our GeekFetch database and populate all of the information about what's there. So right here, I can actually do my shortages. So I'm going to say, I actually only got 7 copies because 3 of them were damaged. At the end of this check-in process, Managed Comics actually creates a shortages damages report that you can use to upload to. That's funny. I must have uploaded my diamond file wrong. All right. Well, we'll just do a lunar. But yeah, normally you can.
That's another feature that I have from my old software is generation of the OSD report.
Yeah.
But it was a lot easier when it was just there was only one vendor around.
Right. Yeah. 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 It normally will take in multiple extra files at once and just kind of merge them all. The one thing I always caution people against is like, don't bring in a diamond and a PRH at the same time, because sometimes you'll have the same things on the two under different stock codes. And there's been occasions where that's just thrown like a little bit of a loop. We got to kind of get in there and figure out why that happens exactly. So this is telling me that these titles are going to be pulled for people. If there was something hinky about the data and Green Lantern number 12 second printing had like 10 people on it, I would probably know that that was the wrong series code or something was there. But everything's looking good right now. And then this is how much I'm going to import into my store after I've done all my pulls. So the one thing that was missing,
in other words, your shelf copies as compared to your
exactly. Yeah. So this is the shelf copies I'm going to add to the store afterwards. And then this is just a confirmation screen that's showing me the things where I had damages or shortages. I confirm my pull. Boom. I can now do my physical pulls of all the people's orders. And in a couple minutes, it'll actually generate orders for all those customers as well. And just like with any smart system, when I get to the customer orders here, I can actually send an invoice to Brian Garside and let him know that these books are ready for him to pick up. And so he can go ahead and it'll create an invoice under draft orders. So Brian has an invoice here for $35.55. What else is cool is that anything that was already on a draft invoice before, this just appends those draft invoices and keeps on growing them. So yeah, he won't.
I don't have one for every week or whatever. I've got one.
No, he gets one invoice with all of his stuff over time.
Now wait a minute. What if I want to charge him every week?
Oh, you can do that. So you could charge him every week, but if he doesn't pay week one, then it's going to just keep on accumulating inside of the invoices.
But I have the option as a retailer too.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. And we recommend that you either invoice them or have them come into the store once a week for sure.
Let's talk about that best practices for just a second, Brian, because I had a big question for you.
Sure.
About that ratio of subscription to shelf comics, right? To me, whatever that ratio is, it's different for every store for sure.
Yep.
Right. And but it's kind of highly telling of the type of stores, several types of stores, I think that you can find. You can find the ones that stray way to one side where it's like subs only, and there is not much for the shelves. Right. And then you can find those other ones that don't control that number very well at all. And they're just swimming in excess inventory that it's just money flushed down the drain. Right. So what is, in your experience, how do you recommend to shops to walk that line between subs and shelf copies? Are there rules of thumb or like?
Yeah, I don't know. It probably depends on your marketplace and your physical size. Most shops that I go into these days, and I've been doing kind of a road show lately where I drive around to different, started out in just kind of southwestern Ontario, but I'm branching out. We're going to Michigan at the end of the month. I'm going to go to upstate New York next month. So a lot of stores that I go into are like 2,500 square feet or smaller. Yes. And they just don't have room for that big, huge back issue bin bonanza, right? So some of them will have back issues that they can look up and grab them from the back if they have a back, or from their offsite warehouse, which is why an online system really works for those guys. But I mean, by and large, for 90% of the books out there, if you don't sell it within the first 4 weeks, it's dead stock to you. And you know, books getting hot, what, 1 in 100 maybe. There's 3,000 items in the previous catalog every month. So here's a little stat for you. Every month, Marvel has 280 SKUs that we have to make some sort of fix on the issue sequence number stuff. So one day I was like, how many actual individual Marvel SKUs, just comics, come out every month? What do you think the number is?
I can't even fathom because of the number of variant covers. Like, I don't even know how to, like, if I was to say how many individual titles there were, I would say something like maybe 30 or 40. I don't know.
I think it's probably closer to 70 from Marvel every month, just individual titles. But there's 500-ish SKUs every month, just in individual comics from Marvel Comics.
Insanity.
Of those, 260 to 280 of them have some sort of error in the data that we go and fix every month.
Wow,
so
that's a humongous percentage.
Yeah, it's 48 to 56% depending on the month, right? So yeah, this is, so when we talk to Penguin Random House, we're constantly talking, okay, here's the data issues that we run into month in and month out, and why do those impact the store, or why do those impact the publishers? Like, Marvel's in the business of selling comics, right? Marvel Comics, their only job is to sell comics. If they're selling comics, if Peach Momoko, for example, every month was the B cover to any series, I guarantee you we would sell 3 times as many Peach Momoko variant covers. But sometimes it's the F cover, sometimes it's the G cover, sometimes it's the H cover. And Marvel is under the impression that individual subscribers care so freaking much that they will actually manually update their lists every month. But newsflash to everyone, it is less than 10% of all comic book purchasers who will update their list monthly. So the burden falls on the retailer. 90% of the retailers are doing all that work every month to make sure that Jimmy Smith gets the Peach Momoko variant. And, how do you remember that? I can barely remember what I had for breakfast, let alone that Jimmy Smith gets Peach Momoko every month.
Yes, it's people who keep that kind of like proprietary info in their shop in the owner's head.
Yeah.
Are limiting the growth of their shop and increasing the chance of errors and unhappy customers, and
for sure,
especially in this day. Like, there was a moment in time where it was possible, but it's just, we're long past that point in time.
Well, and not only that, but if you create systems and repeatable things in your business, you actually make your business more valuable. And like, I don't know about you, Dan, but I'm not a young man anymore, and I would imagine that if I ran a comic shop, part of my right this white comes from experience, boys and girls, but if I owned a comic shop, I would imagine part of my retirement plan would be figuring out how to offboard myself from that shop.
Yes.
So if you have repeatable systems, you have a system like Managed Comics where all your customers are in a database. When you go to sell that business, every single customer is worth $1 value. And what's amazing is that if they're all in Shopify, you actually know literally how much each one of those customers is worth. And how much is that worth to a potential investor when you say, I'd like to sell everything, and my chattel is worth this much, and my customer base will bring you in $1.2 million a year. That's a different story than my customer base will bring you in some money and I don't know what it is. Right?
Well, and by the way, and here's turnkey systems that run the entire thing. So like, all that's doing is increasing the sale price of your business, and increase, more importantly than that, because most people are not thinking about selling their business.
Right.
What's really important is the day-to-day mileage, brain mileage that you're saving yourself, because it's doable to do this in your head, but it is not doable long-term to do it in your head.
Absolutely.
That's the real problem, right?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I mean, this is super morbid, but how many like awesome retailers do we know in the last 5 years who've passed away and their stores have evaporated 6 months later? And that sucks. Like, my personal comic store in Toronto, Comics and More, Bob passed away from a brain tumor, and nobody took over the store when he left because nobody knew how to take over the store. It was his
Yes.
brainchild, and he knew everything about it. So, yeah, from a legacy and continuity planning standpoint, I think you owe it to yourself to have systems in place for your store.
The other sad part on the other end of that spectrum is the new store owner.
Yeah,
Like, for years when I first moved here, when I moved to Arcata 10 years ago, I was like, okay, someday I'll open up a shop because I know how to do that. Like, I can get a diamond account
yeah,
and maybe a couple backup vendors and some gaming and some whatever, and I'm in business, and I've got a nice profitable line that I can build a store around,
right.
right? Like, out of the gate, you can do okay with comics if you get enough volume. I think those days are done. The discount tiers are grandfathered in.
I agree.
The new ones are not profitable for a startup to engage in very much at all.
No.
I don't know how you start a new shop in this day and age. What would be your best piece of advice to someone opening a new shop? What's the first thing that they should do?
Well, I mean, the absolute first thing they should do is create a website, because you need to start generating a list of customers on day one and day zero, frankly. And then you can't even get an account with Diamond or Lunar or Penguin Random House if you don't have at least a website. So the days of just starting it because you have a group of friends that you want to buy together are long gone. So that's kind of table stakes. But on top of that, you need a dedicated following of people who are going to buy stuff from you regularly. So that's number two. And you need some systems around how you're going to get that stuff up. As we showed, once you've done that check-in process, all your books are available online. Now, what's cool is once they're in Shopify, there's plugins for eBay, so you can start funneling stuff over to eBay. There's plugins for all kinds of different marketplaces too, right? So you can start funneling product over to different marketplaces as well.
So
And I think
Shopify becomes your hub for all your online channels.
that's right. It's your omni-channel hub for sure, and it tracks the stock in Shopify and then reflects it in all the places that it's out in.
Amazon too? Amazon Marketplace too?
Yeah, you can do Amazon Marketplace. I've never done it, but I know there's even like a Walmart marketplace thing. The only one I haven't seen yet is there's one I've just heard now. I think it's called Whatnot or something like that, where I don't see any sort of an integration. But give it 6 months and somebody will build an integration into it.
Because I would love to have the ability to say, take inventory that I have deemed past my prime, maybe that I want to blow out,
For
and
sure.
only blow it out through certain online channels, like
Yeah.
only put it out as sets on eBay or blow it out on certain channels and not spam the whole internet or devalue my product in store
sure.
to my customers.
Yeah, and you can do that. You can select which things, and you can, I think, select it by tag. So you would tag everything that you wanted to put on eBay and do that for sure. Yeah, and then I think as a new store owner, the toughest thing is understanding that you have to have 3 different accounts now. Like the days of just having a diamond account are so far beyond. You could get away with a diamond and a lunar, but if you're going to carry DC at all, you have to have a lunar account because they're the only game in town. So for sure, you've got multiple accounts you need.
Are we still shaking our head over DC deciding they don't want to be dependent on one distributor and then moving all their comics to one distributor?
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
Like if they had given you an option so you could still get them through Diamond or through Lunar, it would make sense. But I just think the volume is not enough to support 2 full line DC distributors.
Isn't that weird though? Because like IDW is doing both Diamond and Penguin Random House, and so anybody who is a Penguin Random House client is exclusive to Penguin Random House, and then Penguin Random House is distributing out to the, not exclusive, but their primary distributorship is Penguin Random House. Penguin Random House then sells to Diamond or whomever else would want. Lunar's
weird.
Interesting what they're doing because they are starting to kind of pick at the bottom end of the market. So they're taking a lot of the things like Ahoy, Vault, And I think you're going to start seeing those guys leave Diamond over to Lunar because they're getting better terms at Lunar, and they're probably getting paid a little faster. Maybe I'm sure there's some reasons around why you would be interested in going to Lunar. But yeah, the whole market.
If you're not a front of the book guy at Diamond, there's not much incentive to stay there. You're getting stepped on in a lot of ways in the back of the book.
For sure, yeah. Yeah, I think we're going to see more and more places move over to Penguin Random House, and I think we're going to see a lot of the smaller publishers move over to Vault or to Lunar.
This is sad. Weird. It is weird to me because, yeah, you point out. I go, yeah, maybe there's not enough volume to have two distributors, but I go, in this print-on-demand era, they print as many as they need or don't need, and it's, I guess, just two sets of shipping costs from the printer to two different distributors. So. Yeah. That's not nothing, but it doesn't seem, it would seem it's deliberately destructive to Diamond in a way that seems malicious or has like bad blood behind the decision to do it rather than it being just a straightforward business decision.
Yeah, maybe I don't think it's malicious, honestly. I'm trying to choose my words carefully, Dan. Because I don't want you.
Nobody's watching this.
Garside of Managed Comics says Diamond is terrible.
Rich Johnston right now is poised on the edge of his seat. He's like,
that's right. I guess what I would say is I think Diamond has struggled to keep up with technology, and in 2022,
big time.
Their systems are still kind of stuck in 1997, and God bless them. They have brought us where we are. And honestly, Diamond's data is still the best data of anybody's data. So they're doing some things right, but they've lost a lot of people that kind of built that. I'll tell you, the institutional knowledge that used to be there around how a lot of this data is structured, I am very, very terrified that it's only been through the forensic work of me and a few other individuals that anybody knows how this stuff works, because I don't think there's documentation on how Diamond's stuff works, like at a very low level, right?
And their championing of their own point of sale and subscription stuff has been not good. The tools that they provided to retailers, while FOC is great, and some of the online real-time reordering was great, they really dropped the ball on things like turning images into a profit center rather than something that could help accelerate growth on the web.
A marketing tool, which is really what it is. Absolutely.
They don't own any of those images yet. They would charge you a lot of money to get CDs every month of the images and stuff.
Yeah.
It was really, really annoying. And then they released they worked for years on an image downloader tool where you could like type in 5 codes at a time and get a few images, and even that didn't work.
No, it's
you can't deliver JPEGs on the web, guys. What's going on?
Yeah, it's sad, and they're really, really resource constrained. There's not a whole lot of people working at Diamond Central in the data, like in the IT department anymore at all. So they're just having to make do with what they have.
And they're busy fighting ransomware attacks.
Yeah,
and
that was
failing.
Yeah. The just thinking about Comic Suite in general, like that tool is still being used by a lot of retailers, but the Retail Management Hero was sold by Microsoft a few years ago, and the companies that are kind of maintaining it are not really adding any new features or anything. So everything that's happened with multi-distributors has been kind of bolt on to a system that was never intended to have bolt-on after bolt-on after bolt-on added to it. We built our system from the ground up because it was too friggin' complicated to add it to Managed Comics 1.0. And we managed to add a bunch of little things to the old system. But at this point, like, I don't even want to look at that code on the old system. And it's only 5 years old. Like, Retail Management Hero is 12, 13 years old. Can't even imagine what that stuff looks like.
And it was never that good to begin with,
No.
Ryan. It was really bad and Windows only
Yeah.
and not fun. Even when you bought the Diamond supported hardware and support package, I heard nothing but disappointment from anybody
Yeah.
I ever knew who tried it.
Yeah, absolutely. Challengers Comics and Conversation in Chicago have been using Managed Comics since December when we were still pretty crappy. And I was talking to Dal one day and he said, the Shopify point of sale is super simple, but it's actually really nice to use. When you got customers there, you're just scanning things in, you're typing, like it doesn't take a whole, level of concentration to do that stuff. So yeah, for sure. Kind of simpler tools are definitely what's what right now.
And just think about training your employees on this versus, like, say, some of the FileMaker based stuff that's out there. That God bless Moby and Moby users, but I was one. I used it after using my own system, and it felt like going back to 1987
Yeah.
for my point of sale, as opposed to 97 or God forbid 2007.
Moby has some really cool features and it's got a super passionate user base that still uses it, even though it's been like end of life for. Well, I think it's actually at the stage now where like the Macs you have on it, you've just got to pray they don't ever break because it wouldn't work.
Yeah,
on
there's a big problem there. There's a big problem with that. I really wish somebody would have done just even a similar thing, but based it around a more modern database, something.
Yeah. So Django Boren from the Comics Place in Bellingham, Washington, is working on his own system called Comic Shop Assistant, which it's honestly the heir apparent to Moby. He looked at a lot of the things that Moby did, and he's doing. I love Django, and we're supposed to be competitors, and yet we have whiskeys together, once every month or two, because the industry isn't big enough to have nasty competitors. So I love Stu from Comic Hub. Like I'm not going to have bitter rivalries with anyone, because I think this industry is fun, and honestly, the industry needs 3 or 4 players to be one nipping at each other's heels and making each other better. But 2, like it's 2,500 stores. I can't support 2,500 stores by myself.
True.
So
and it's lack of competition for Diamond. Sorry to say, everybody knows nobody loves Steve Jeppy more than me, but like lack of competition did not do Diamond a lot of good.
No. I wish what's happening now would have happened 10 years ago, because I think it would have changed the industry for the better 10 years ago. For sure.
Well, Brian, look, we're getting all nostalgic, and since we're being nostalgic, how about we take a break from comic software and we look at some comic books for a minute?
Let's do it.
What do you think? All right. So I was just looking at this box next. Wait a minute. How do I do
That's
this?
me. Don't show me.
Move that. Move this over here. And then what? We got to take you somewhere. Where do we take you? Oh, yeah. $1 Million Comics Cam. Okay. $1 million. Make you holler. Comic book cam. Here we go. And what is more tech and futuristic than Barry Windsor Smith's Machine Man miniseries, dude?
Were you good stuff? So what year are we looking at? 75-cent cover price. It's got to be 87.
This is right in my wheelhouse. This is 84, pal.
84, really?
Yeah, 84. This is an early limited series, Marvel limited series, when that was kind of like a new thing, right? Like I think Punisher was their first what they called a limited series. No, maybe it was Secret Wars was their first.
My son is 13, so I was literally his age when this came out. I remember buying these from the newsstand back in the day.
Me too. Me absolutely. I love this kind of that's the number 4. I gave away the reveal.
Look at that. You've got 2 direct market copies there and 1 newsprint copy.
Oh, I didn't even notice that. Yeah, you're right.
That's where. So there used to be a great delineation in my long boxes where it was like, okay, stopped buying at the newsstand here, started buying from a comic store here.
which is like that's when you got legit, right?
Oh
Like
yeah,
that's
yeah.
for real.
Well,
Dude.
I started buying from the comic store, and it wasn't too long after that I started working at a comic store. So,
Like I said, Brian, we're like from another universe. It's just like you were wearing snowshoes and I was in flip flops. I think all this happened.
I was skateboarding to my comic shop every week. So
Okay.
we probably weren't that mirror universe.
Okay, so I was roller skating, maybe. I don't know what I was doing. Okay, so this is Tom DeFalco script with Herb Trimp breakdowns and Barry Windsor Smith finishes. Okay. Let me see if I can get in a little closer on this thing. Hang on a second.
Herb Trimp is the classic, like, Incredible Hulk artist, right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Great Hulk artist. And this just feels like a sci-fi story they wanted to tell.
Yeah.
More than like the Machine Man story. Like, I don't know, because it propels us into the far distant future of 2020, Brian. Can you
That's
believe
crazy. That's 2 years ago.
And this introduced some of my favorite things in Marvel. Like Iron Man of 2020 has been my favorite comic, or one of my favorite villains since this comic came out, just because I love that concept.
It was Arno Stark, right?
Arno Stark, yeah. But just having Barry Windsor Smith, is this looking okay to you? I think it's pretty reasonable. I can zoom in a little more. Look at those Newtons.
Oh, gosh.
But I mean, this is unmistakably Barry Windsor Smith doing a cyberpunk.
Look at those faces, eh? Like, he was allergic to drawing noses, I think. They were just so flat. Every person he has, just like of Greek origin, or Roman origin, with a flat. Yeah.
I love it as much for the ads as anything, but like even for the limited coloring of the time and everything, this book had a special look to it. It was so different and so different than any other Marvel series going on at all, in that it was just like set in the far future, and we got to see glimpses of the future of the Marvel universe, which that in 1984, that was a kind of a special new thing.
It's true, yeah. And look at just how like technical everything is. There's so many boxes, and that hair.
Oh, dude, this is robot heaven. It's, so Banetronics, who like Bane was like one of the characters from Iron Man, I guess, right? Like gosh, I can't even remember her name. And we get to see the return of guys like Madame Mask and a couple of other characters. But for the most part, it's just like the future. Marvel Universe is kind of forgotten, and these guys just find Machine Man in a box somewhere.
That's right. Yeah.
And rip it open. But then in the process, like it's a full-on, it's very Matrix-esque in its portrayal kind of the future.
Yeah.
It's a book that doesn't get enough love, in my opinion, at all.
So many mainframes.
Great stuff. You're talking about the origin of Machine Man. I really liked him in this era, because he was so much more mechanical and much less a thing of like, digital nanotechnology, like magical technology.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He had like a gun in his finger.
Yeah.
He had to like load 22 cartridges into himself.
The closest anyone ever got to this after this was what was it? Agents of Hate.
Yeah.
And like he would refer to humans as fleshy meat bags, and
that was Warren Ellis writing that stuff, right? And
Stuart Immonen drawing.
He was the next cool guy to do anything interesting with Machine Man to me,
for sure.
Who I think is a pretty cool character.
I love these ads, like comic books for sale, and that's my favorite part. Like, God.
It's really interesting. This guy Bob Bierbaum, comics historian, you might know that guy. Yeah. He talks about he says a lot about the reason fandom and Marvel fandom exploded was a decision by their editorial to cut ad pages into sections and sell tiny sections.
Really?
DC didn't do that.
Yeah.
Marvel did it. And it led to this whole wave of aftermarkets, and which eventually led to Chuck Rosansky doing his double page spread ads and showing these incredible prices that were attained for comics. And that really made the snowball of like comic collecting as a thing, for good or for ill.
That makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. Because if you go back like 5 or 6 pages, there was a huge full page Westfield comic.
Yes.
I remember that one distinctly.
Oh, okay.
Just a couple more pages. Yeah. There you go.
Here we go. Wow, they're old school.
Yeah. That's so
only 40 cents. So a 60-cent comic, they're selling it for 33% off, right? And still making their margins barely, but like mail order volume based operation. Yep. Have to spend a lot of this ad in 1984 cost thousands and thousands of dollars.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's probably maybe tens of thousands of dollars.
Well, and the thing is, they were buying line wide ads, because I remember seeing those ads for Westfield in every single book that month.
Huh. I that one has never really stuck out at me before. I'm glad you pointed it out. I love it. I mean, I'm giving Herb Trimp some credits here, like, because the layouts and everything are fantastic. I wouldn't have guessed that. I mean, it's not exceptionally Barry Windsor-ish in its layout. I guess it's more.
I was just gonna say, yeah, this looks like a non-Barry Windsor Smith layout for sure.
Yeah, like he would have a lot more like really tall panels and stuff, right? And skinny panels and stuff.
Yeah, I almost wonder if he like turned in something and Marvel was like, maybe not.
But man, to get Barry Windsor on top of it, turned it into, this is a banger of a book. It really reads really well even to this day.
Yeah.
Very fun stuff with reveals like, oh, Jocasta is still alive. A little bit of a weird Jocasta body. Not as sexy as
that's bizarre, eh?
I want my robots a little curvier than that. Sorry, am I allowed to say that?
That's not Agatha Harkness, is it?
No, I think it's I forget if it's Madame Mask, yeah, or
is it? Okay.
Or it's what's her name, Carly Bane. It's Bane. It's
right.
It's like the daughter of the villain from the old Machine Man comics, I think.
Yeah.
I should have reread this before, but I'm like, I just literally, it's sitting next to me here. I said, let's look at this with Brian. He's of my ilk. Okay, and like, if this be Sanctuary, that wasn't what it was called. It was called Zion in The Matrix.
Yeah.
So they have their version of Zion in this called The Sanctuary. It's like their little tech hangout where all the post-apocalyptic punks hang out.
Are these still Herb Trimpe?
Let's see. Good question. Let's see. Yep. Breakdowns by Trimp.
See, I wonder, because I remember there's a stylistic change at some point. So I'm pretty sure that Herb didn't do the breakdowns. And because look at those panels, they're getting longer. You're getting those BWS. Look at those. Like, those are BWS panels.
Definitely more so. I mean, maybe he's adapting to Barry, or maybe Barry was giving comments, but this guy's great.
Like, this is looking more and more BWS every panel.
Very Baron Harkonnen-ish character. I love this guy. The story, the pacing it's different. It's that 1980s Jim Shooter-esque pacing, right? Where a lot of stuff has to get reiterated. But if you're a kid like me and you want robot fighting action, this was the only game in town. In Marvel Comics, I mean, outside of Transformers, I guess. Yeah, it's definitely looking more and more Barry, but it is absolutely the finishes that identify it as Barry Windsor Smith. And he also did the colors, which I find interesting.
Yeah.
The colors are exceptionally muted.
That's a,
Um,
that's a
but
Barry Windsor Smith palette though too. Like if you look at his X-Men stuff, totally these colors.
absolutely.
Look at these like bright blues, and then you've got the
Yes.
yeah. Like this
Total.
could be a shot of Lady Deathstrike or Death.
Yeah.
What was her name? Deathstrike.
Yeah. Very, very much so. This a Dance of Life and Death issue.
Yeah, Life Death. Yeah.
Beautiful stuff, man. I really enjoyed. And we're getting to some of the stuff that I think the reveal is the end of this issue, but cool future tech and future cars and everything in this interestingly thought out future world. These cyber characters. There we go. And then this was like, dude, this was a trip. You're reading this and you're like, oh, Stark Industries. Oh, great. We're going to get an Iron Man. And then it's a pretty slow reveal to this creepy guy, this creepy mask. And
with the teeth and everything. It was such a great
dude, the Iron Man of 2020 is a bad guy. That's badass, man. That really, really, really brings me back to the day. And how about these subscription prices back then too? Here was the whole line of Marvel Comics back then. You know what I mean? Like you could keep up.
Yeah. How much was a year?
Let's see what it says here. Each 16 issue subscription, by the way.
Yeah.
$6.50.
$6.50.
And that's less than 41 cents per copy. At the newsstand, you'd pay 60 cents.
And is there a Canadian price there?
No, but it's interesting. These are even this newsstand one. These were 75 cents with a $1 Canadian price.
Yeah, because I remember I had a subscription to Alpha Flight and to New Teen Titans, and I remember there was like it was an extra $1 or something like that to get it to Canada. And they used to come in a brown paper kind of cover, and they'd be just beat to hell by the time they'd get to me.
Did they fold them in half?
Oh,
like
God, yeah.
Subscription crease?
Fold it in half. Yeah. Yeah, so this is right around the time of the Dune movie too. 1984.
Yeah.
So he would have been inspired. So is this one also Herb Trimpe layouts?
Oh yeah, let's check. What an era. Herb Trimpe.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Edited by Larry Hama.
Ooh. G.I. Joe's Larry Hama.
Or is it Letters by Barry Hama? It's hard to say. I don't know what this says. Wait a minute. It says Stan Lee presents Tom DeFalco script, Herb Trimpe breakdown, Barry Windsor Smith finishes and colors, Janice Chang letters, Larry Hama editor. Okay.
Yeah, for sure, because Jim Shooter chief.
Which I think when I think of Larry Hama, I think of reader-friendly, action-packed comics, right?
Sure, yeah.
Like very storytelling driven in his approach. And so that's perfect for an editor.
Barry Hama still looks great. He's like 73 years old and he looks 50.
I just heard he just did an interview on the Comic Tropes channel. I haven't checked out.
Yeah.
I want to see that thing. Yeah. Okay, here we go. Here's Sanctuary. Pretty cool thing. Let's zoom this bad boy in here. Pan and scan. Right, very helicarrier, shield helicarrier-esque, but still neat and techie looking with the dome city top. I'm into it. Yeah, and the reveal of Gears Garvin still being alive.
Yeah,
looking very Brian Garside.
I was gonna say he's looking very Dan Shaheen, but all right.
Let me just say, oh come on, bro, wait a minute.
He's larger than you, yeah, for sure.
Come on, Brian. Who are we playing with here?
Doesn't have my baby blues though.
But Gears Garvin, that's my kind of character. It's a really cool like approach to the engineer. This is the hacker engineer, not the super scientist engineer, right? This is the kind of engineer I
Grease
love.
on his hands, the way God intended. Absolutely.
Very much more Mr. Scott, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, this was a beautiful book. All the future haircuts and this is not too different than anything that we see now with like everybody in the future's they've got like a critical barber shortage in the future. That's my theory.
Because everyone's bald?
No, the lost art of hairdressing, because nobody has sideburns. Everybody's got like their hair cut off in the middle and just like
true, yeah.
Very weird. If you're watching Star Trek, especially, a lot of weird haircuts going on there. Yeah, these things, dude. Like each one of these guys could spend like a few $100, I think.
Yeah.
And get one of these little squares and sell stuff in one of these squares. And that was fairly revolutionary.
Golden State Comics was in there.
Nice the monthly checklists. I guess stuff that I missed.
I love the bullpen bulletins and the Meanwhile from DC. Those are my favorite things every month to see those things. Because it felt like inside baseball, right? Like you were so inside when you were reading those.
Here's like a co-op ad that it looks like multiple stores did and probably used co-op money.
Yeah.
Which was actually a thing back in the day, right? Like you could say DC still had it up until even when I had a store. You had to meet certain requirements. Like if you took out your Yellow Pages ad and put Green Lantern in it or something like that, DC would actually kick you down money to subsidize that.
For sure, yeah.
Which was pretty cool.
Canada has one store. That sounds about right.
Yeah, so this is just like Marvel Supermart, I guess. Oh, look, Jeppy's World.
Oh, wow.
Is there in Florida. That's really weird. And wait, another Jeppy's World. There's two Jeppy's Worlds in here. Friendly Franks. That's a name I remember hearing for sure. Really cool. And then right below it, a convention ad. Yeah. It wouldn't surprise me if it was like the same folks from the ad above, maybe.
For sure, yeah.
That's a decent ad. Pretty cool. And this is the fun of looking through individual comics as opposed to like graphic novels.
Yeah, for sure.
They lay open really nice. The colors are nice and flat too. They look good on camera.
I bought a bunch of Superman and Legion of Superheroes recently, just because I wanted to look at like old ads and stuff. And I'm stealing some of the ad layouts to create some ads for Managed Comics.
Oh, there you go. Okay, one last issue to go. The final issue of.
Okay, let's check. Is it still laid out?
You know what?
See,
he's gone. Okay, this one is.
I remember this distinctly, that it was so different than the previous 3 issues.
Okay, let's see if we can spot a big difference.
Starting off with a huge splash of just people.
A really cool, nice perspective shot, weird angle on the whole thing. Interesting choice.
See, now we're getting our big, tall BWS panels.
For sure.
But they're not just tall. See how each one of them is slightly different? So it's like a step, right? Which is leading your eye, and plus Machine Man's like growing in a triangle. Like that's so cool.
Camera zooming in, but then also the perspective is on the panel is changing just a little bit. Yeah, that's cool.
Look at, he's breaking through the panels.
Yeah, I don't know if
and a lot of people don't know, like this was so rare back then. Like you didn't have McFarlane layouts like you do now,
right?
Where things would just break through panels and stuff. That's so cool.
Yeah, those guys were looking at this stuff too and loving it and totally being influenced by Barry Windsor Smith.
Oh yeah, for sure.
His tech stuff always. This is so Weapon X.
Yeah.
right? Exact same thing that Wolverine was like, had the same kind of cables and similar situation. And even his new Monsters book too has a little bit
Isn't
of
that funny that like, you think of the humanoid stuff, like the oh, what are those things called? But all that, like,
Traveler and
yeah, all the UK stuff. And you think that's where that influence comes from, but then you see this stuff and you're like, oh, this is 40 years ago. A dude was doing this stuff.
well, I think unmistakably Bear had to be was influenced more by European styles
For
and a
sure.
fine
Yeah.
art. Yeah, a little harmonica ad. I just love this. These little karate school. How many people saw this little fist and sent in for karate school? I really wonder.
Heck yeah. Look at that again. So he breaks the side panel, which again, you never saw that. So cool. And he breaks it with sound effects.
Yeah. Oh yeah, just here, huh? A little bit on the edges.
Yeah.
Nice.
Again, sound effect breaking through the panel. Ka-chuk.
Yeah, just subtly though, huh? Just enough to give it a little bit extra. I like it. Here too. Well, I wonder if that was the lettering. No, I think it said, what did it say here? Yeah, no, Jim Novak on letters, but that doesn't necessarily mean sound effects.
Yeah, I would bet you that BWS had a lot of say in the sound effects here.
I think so. This is too integral to the art,
Yeah,
I think, for it not to be. Who doesn't like a good zot?
nothing better than a good zot.
Yeah, this is great stuff. But I remember as a young kid being like, this bitter, drunken, old weirdo dude, like it's just like oddly depressing in a way I couldn't name yet. I'm still too young and fresh. Yeah, great action stuff. And as I remember, kind of just a sort of like to be continued, sort of like on into the future sort of ending. Right. And Jocasta makes her final appearance in here, and they sort of like, do they go out right off into the sunset together? No, Jocasta decides to stay with Bane. She's been her companion like for so long.
Yeah.
And then these guys, it's sort of like, where are we going? East, my friend. Why east? Why not? Like it's so open-ended.
It's like Kane from Kung Fu, just going off into the distance.
Yeah, I love this, man. Brian, I'm really glad we stuck around. We went a little longer than I expected.
That was fun stuff. Yeah, I haven't looked at that book probably in 20 years easily.
And it's been collected, but I'm going to say it looks actually really rotten on glossy paper because, Marvel, they don't really like put a lot of care and thought into like paper stock and stuff on the reprints and coloring as well. Sometimes you got to go back to these originals, crappy as they are.
Yeah, I remember. Okay. I can totally remember that cover. It's a gorgeous cover on the trade paperback.
Okay, before we get out of here, Brian, let's address a couple more chats here in the comments. So, like, I can't speak to this. It's hard for me to say, but from everything I understood, the business of comics was up. If you're selling the right stuff, your business was up. I know if you're selling manga business, there was a lot more manga sales, but how are you feeling that translated to the average shop?
It's an interesting time. There's some really interesting kind of changes going on in the industry. I would say that comics will never ever go away. I think what may happen is sort of a transformation of how comics come out. We're seeing a lot more kind of original graphic novel trade stuff coming out. A lot of that black label stuff looks really transitional, that it will become graphic novels that will come out once a quarter kind of thing. And honestly, Wonder Woman Dead Earth, I think, would be better as a single graphic novel that came out than as 4 oversized trades. So a lot of this stuff is still being done to kind of facilitate that monthly urge. But at the same time, customers don't necessarily buy that kind of stuff that way. Like, everybody's always going to buy Batman. Everyone's always going to buy Spider-Man. But some of these kind of other things are probably better served in other formats.
And it's weird. It's almost self-fulfilling because they come out in this Black Label and you go, this is obvious. It's just 4 issues. This is going to be a trade. I'll be able to just wait, get the whole thing in one story chunk.
Yep.
In a format that's much more like for the ages anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because, like, I read the first issue of this and I was like, this is great. I'll wait till it comes out in a trade, in a hardcover, because I wanted this on my shelf. It was I loved it. So I waited till it came out on a hardcover. I bought the first issue. Rogues, I don't know if you've read that one. I'm reading that as individuals because I don't think it would benefit.
Rogues. Yeah, I did get Rogues #1. Yeah, I got #1. It's
really cool. I really, really like it. But
great art.
Dead Earth is like, that is a book that I need as a hardcover. I just saw the Aquaman book this week. I forget what it's called, but it's gorgeous. Like, it's something that I'm gonna want as a hardcover. And I don't even like Aquaman. He's a weirdo. But yeah, that looks really cool. So yeah, it's an interesting time. We're also seeing a big transition in store owners. So I'm seeing a lot of kind of older dudes selling to younger guys in their 30s who have an entirely different mentality of how to run a store. They order a lot tighter. They're not ordering a bunch of extra stuff. So it's becoming kind of like the rest of the world where you pre-order everything. Like, try and get a retro Boba Fett action figure if you haven't pre-ordered it. Comics are getting more like that, which is going to mean discovery becomes a little bit harder, right? You're going to need a lot more gatekeepers telling you what's cool and what's not.
I just think it reinforces the idea of comic issues as a collectible market.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then the book trade as like more like the perennial market. But even then, there's aftermarket increases on graphic novels.
For sure. Yeah, like weird things like the JLA Avengers going to $350, $400, which, like, I almost want to sell my hardcover absolute version of it because I think I could pretty much almost buy a car with it these days. Wow. It's insane. But yeah, it's the market, I think, is still healthy. What we're seeing though is like it's a very different market than it was even 2 years ago. And the paper shortages are a serious thing. Like, man, every time I look at a cancellation list, Marvel canceled 88 books before they were like the day before they were solicited. Marvel canceled 88 books.
Wow.
That were in there. Sorry, 88 individual issues, which probably only represents about 30 comics, but still, we're looking at, months of that stuff falling backwards. So you've got stuff that should have come out. Danger Street #1 is a great example. It was supposed to come out this week and it's now being resolicited for December. Have you seen that, by the way? Danger Street?
No.
It's like who is it? It's Danger. As soon as I saw the titles of it, it's Tom King, George Fornes, and Dave Stewart. And it's basically like kind of a new Garside story with the new gods, and so I think it's gonna kind of spin out of Dark Crisis from what I've seen. And DC's kind of putting a lot of faith in it at the Christmas time thing. So it was supposed to come out now. It's coming out in December, which is a 6-month delay, which we're seeing that all over the place for things. Never mind like absolutes and stuff that are always perpetually late, but now they're like, we're talking going from first quarter 2022 to first quarter 2023. So a year late kind of thing. So yeah, paper is definitely a struggle. And then that means as a retailer, you're kind of depending on this stuff coming out at a regular clip to pay your bills. But when this stuff gets delayed so much, how do you take, how do you fill that need? Because your rent ain't going down, your employee wages aren't getting delayed. So yeah, I think there's a lot of struggles there. So comics are still doing really well. It's just there's a lot of external pressures right now on the comics industry to just like every industry.
Says here, Tom King, Garside will deal with his deep-seated childhood trauma that Granny Goodness never loved him. I didn't really realize that. That's it. Really interesting. Sounds like a winner, another winner from Tom King.
Tom King has just, man, he's on all cylinders, like everything he touches is gold.
I actually really liked his work on Batman because it was so unusual and so
very
different
different.
Everything that came before it. It had its ups and downs, but I really enjoyed it too.
And he did like 94 issues or something like that. Like, because he took over when Rebirth started, and he went all the way, I think it was 94 issues or 84 issues. It is a lot, though. I was just looking at it the other day and thinking, man, this is a big run.
Well, were they doing 4 per month or at least 2 per month for a long time?
Yeah. Some of that's hit and miss. Like, I didn't love the Gotham Girl stuff, but some of it's kind of perennial stuff for sure. The Toms in general, Tom Taylor and Tom King, just knocking it out of the park.
Cool. See, there's stuff out there, even in mainstream comics, right? There's still so much new, talented, cool, fun to read comics coming out.
If you're not reading Nightwing, like, you're missing literally the most fun comic on the shelves right now.
Well, I haven't been reading that at all.
Bruno Redondo and Tom Taylor on that, and so there's one issue where every single panel leads into the next panel for 24 panels or 24 pages. So it's one scene of Nightwing starting at one end of the city and ending up at the other, and it's literally him going panels to panel through it's the most beautiful thing you've ever seen.
Cool. I love that kind of stuff. That's good to me.
It'd be right up your alley. Yeah, you'd dig it.
Well, if my local retailer had Managed Comics, Brian, I would be able to just log on right now, sign up for those issues, look for any back issues in his inventory, ship right to my house if I wanted to, right?
Literally to your door.
That would be amazing. Someday, Brian, and I promise you, if and when I do get the bug again to start a new comic book store, the first person I'm coming to talk to is you.
I look forward to it because I know. So the thing that I'm most proud of with Managed Comics is that when our retailers have ideas for things we can change or requests, we act on them and we make them better. And it, like, every one of our retailers helps make our product better. And I love that about, a dedicated and passionate fan base like we have.
Yeah. So do yourselves a favor, guys. Go out there, go check out managedcomics.com. Is there like a demo or anything that they can
like right on the front page, there's like a 15-minute demo we walk through, but they can book a meeting with me. They can send an email to help@managedcomics.com, and I'll get back to them and book a time with them and sit down and see if we can make some magic in their store.
Now, in full disclosure, I want to thank you, Brian, and Managed Comics for being the longest and biggest supporter of this show since the very beginning. I appreciate it more than you can even imagine. But I honestly, truly think that your approach to comics is the culmination of like a vision that I had last century, if you can believe it.
Absolutely, yeah. No, my pleasure. Like, the stuff you've been doing has been some of my favorite stuff on the internet. So I'm always glad to support people that are doing cool stuff that I love. And you know what? You've given me some really great ideas in the times that we've talked. So I really appreciate it.
Cool, man. Well, I'm gonna keep doing this thing. This channel's evolving in a new, weirder direction, but like, I can't help but talk about comics. Like, I couldn't even talk about software for a full hour without like having to comic books live on the air, right?
That's awesome.
Okay, thanks again, Brian. I gotta do the closing spiel.
Do it.
I'll see you next time. Thanks again.
Sounds good. Bye-bye.
Okay, speaking of closing spiels, Guys, thank you for watching this thing. If you're still watching this, you're hardcore. There were quite a few people who watched through this entire thing, and I appreciate it. You're probably a comic book store owner, or you want to be a comic store owner, and you're thinking about software. Just trust me, at least go to the Managed Comics website and check it out. I've looked at every single solution available out there, and none of them are perfect. None of them are going to tick every box on your insanely nitpicky list as a comic book retailer. Like, you're a nutcase. I know, because I'm one of you. I was one of you. But I think you're going to find the one that is the most like forward looking and future facing is probably Managed Comics. So consider checking that out. Brian says thanks. And also consider, hey, hitting like if you like this video. Please consider hitting subscribe if you're not already subscribed. If you're watching this through Facebook or something, think about maybe you go to YouTube, you click subscribe on Dan Shaheen. What's it? Is that going to be a big deal? I sure hope not, because I would really, really appreciate it. I'm so hovering right now on my subscription levels. I just want to see it tick above 2550 or whatever it is. It's like at 48 and it just keeps flickering, and I'm trying to get there. So anyway, do consider that. Also consider, if you got a comic book to share and you want to see it on this amazing $1 million comics cam, send it here. PO Box 1163, Arcata, California 95518. Now I'm going to play the closing credits, and like any good comic book related media, we've got a little secret cameo at the end of the credits, so make sure that you stick around for that. It may or may not be $1 million related, so I'll see you next time.
See what those bloody corporations do? They take your ideas and they suck them. Suck them like leeches until they've gotten every last drop of the marrow from your bones.
Hey, Teacup, why don't you chill out?